The moment he said it, something inside me went silent. My parents think you're a burden, my husband said, not shouting, not angry, just calm. Then he added, almost thoughtfully and honestly. I agree. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at him across our dining table, the one I bought with my savings before we were even married. The clock on the wall kept ticking, loud enough to hurt my ears. I remember thinking how strange it was that the world could keep moving while my marriage collapsed in a single sentence. My name is Aisha, and for 5 years, I believed I was married to a good man. Arslan and I met when I was working 2 jobs, one at a private school during the day, tutoring at night. He admired my strength back then. At least, that's what he used to say. He came from a comfortable family, not rich, but proud. Very proud. Especially his parents. From the beginning, I tried to fit in. I cooked the way his mother liked. I dressed modestly, spoke softly, never argued. When I quit my job due to health issues, I told myself it was temporary. Arslan said, "Don't worry, I'll handle things." I trusted him. That trust slowly became my biggest mistake. His parents visited more often after that. Conversations would stop when I entered the room. His mother's eyes lingered on me, not with hatred, but calculation. His father never looked directly at me anymore, as if I were something inconvenient occupying space. And Arslan? He changed too. He started mentioning expenses. Electricity bills. Groceries. Doctor visits. Always with a sigh. Always casually. Ami worries, he'd say. Abu thinks we should be more practical. I didn't realize practical meant disposable. That night, when he said those words, he leaned back in his chair like a judge delivering a fair verdict. As if this conclusion had been discussed, agreed upon, finalized, without me. I finally found my voice. So, what are you saying? He hesitated for a second. Just 1 second too long. I'm saying, he replied, that maybe we need to rethink things. Rethink things. Not we need help. Not let's figure this out together. Just rethink things, as if I were a bad investment. I looked around the house. The curtains I stitched myself. The kitchen where I memorized his favorite meals. The walls that had heard my prayers. And for the first time, a question crept into my mind, quiet, dangerous, and impossible to ignore. If they had already decided my worth, what else had they planned without telling me? Because people don't call you a burden unless they're ready to set you down. After that night, nothing was openly said, but everything felt wrong. Arslan didn't bring up rethinking things again. Instead, he became unusually polite. Too polite. He'd ask if I needed tea, if I was comfortable, if my medicine was finished. Anyone watching from the outside would think he was being caring again. But I'd learned something crucial: guilt often wears the mask of kindness. The first red flag came with his phone. Arslan used to leave it everywhere, on the bed, the sofa, even in the bathroom. Now it never left his pocket. If it rang, he'd step outside. If I entered the room while he was texting, the screen went dark instantly. Once, while passing behind him, I caught a glimpse of a name flashing on the screen, Abu. The call ended the second he noticed me. That night, I asked gently, "Your parents seem worried lately." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "They just want what's best for us." Us. The word felt oddly misplaced. Then there was the money. Our joint account had always been transparent. I managed household expenses, he handled rent and savings. But one afternoon, when I checked the balance to pay a utility bill, my chest tightened. A large amount was gone. When I asked him, he didn't meet my eyes. "Abu needed help," he said quickly. "I'll replace it." Days passed. The money never returned. Instead, his mother began bringing groceries herself, unasked, unwanted. She'd place them on the counter and casually say, "We didn't want Arslan spending unnecessarily." Each word was sweet, but the message was sharp: "You cost too much." Soon after, I noticed how decisions were being made without me. Arslan changed our internet plan. Cancelled my monthly physiotherapy sessions. Even discussed moving houses, something we had always promised to decide together. "You don't need all that," he said when I protested. "You're at home anyway." At home. As if the walls were my purpose now. The emotional weight was worse than the silence. I started questioning myself. Was I really asking for too much? Was my illness a burden? I replayed his words over and over until they echoed in my sleep. One evening, I overheard him whispering on the balcony. "She doesn't know yet," he said. I froze behind the curtain, heart pounding. "I'll handle it," he continued. "Just trust me." I wanted to step outside. To demand answers. But something stopped me, a quiet instinct, telling me the truth was bigger than I was ready to face. That night, lying beside him, I realized something terrifying. Arslan wasn't confused anymore. He was preparing. And whatever decision his parents and he had reached. I was the only one not invited to the conversation. I found out on a Thursday afternoon, the kind of ordinary day that makes betrayal feel even crueler. Arslan had forgotten his laptop at home. That alone was unusual. He guarded it the way one guards secrets. When it chimed with an email notification, I didn't intend to snoop. I swear I didn't. I only meant to silence the sound. But the subject line froze my hand mid-air: draft CULA agreement, final review before filing. My vision blurred. My heartbeat roared in my ears. I clicked. The document opened like a confession written by strangers who knew my life better than I did. It listed assets, his assets, according to the wording. The apartment we lived in, the savings account that once carried both our names, even the small plot of land my late father had helped us purchase after our wedding. All of it reassigned. All of it removed from me. There was more. A note attached from a lawyer read, "As discussed with your parents, we've structured this to minimize any claim from your wife, citing dependency and medical expenses as financial strain." Dependency. Burden. The words from the title slammed back into my chest. My hands shook as I scrolled further and found a message thread. His mother. His father. And Arslan, my husband, agreeing on timelines. 6 weeks. Enough time to prepare her emotionally. Enough time to ensure I signed quietly. And then the final blow. A calendar invite titled "Rishte Discussion, Sarah." Sarah. His cousin. Recently divorced. Living with his parents. The room spun. I closed the laptop and sat on the floor, my back against the couch, trying to breathe through the pain splitting me open. Every late-night call. Every vanished rupee. Every whispered conversation suddenly lined up into a single, merciless truth. This wasn't concern. This was strategy. When Arslan came home that evening, he found me unusually calm. I served dinner. I asked about his day. I smiled when he spoke. And when he finally said, "We need to talk," I knew he believed I was still unaware. "I've been under pressure," he began, rehearsed and careful. "My parents think this situation isn't sustainable." I looked him straight in the eyes. "So you're divorcing me because I'm sick?" He flinched. "It's not like that." I stood up then, slowly, deliberately. "You already decided I was a burden," I said softly. "You just forgot to tell me you'd started selling my life behind my back." His face drained of color. For a moment, I saw fear. And in that moment, something inside me hardened, not into rage, but resolve. They thought I was weak. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I'd disappear quietly. They were wrong. Because if they'd already written me off, they had no idea what I was capable of writing back. That night, I didn't sleep. Arslan tried to explain, voice shaking, hands open like he still deserved understanding, but his words passed through me like smoke. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to him breathe beside me, realizing the man I loved had already left long before he planned to file the papers. In the early hours of morning, I got up and went to the balcony. The city was quiet, unaware that my life had been neatly boxed, labeled burden, and scheduled for removal. For the first time since my illness, I didn't feel weak. I felt clear. I replayed everything slowly, not with emotion, but with logic. My father's contribution to the land. The joint account statements. The medical reports they were twisting into evidence of dependency. The way Arslan had insisted certain assets be put in his name for convenience. Convenience for whom? I realized something chilling. They didn't just want me gone, they wanted me erased. No claim. No voice. No dignity. And suddenly, my tears stopped. At dawn, I opened the small metal box in my cupboard, the one Arslan had never bothered with. Inside were documents I'd kept out of habit, not hope. Marriage certificates. Old bank records. My father's handwritten note about the land purchase. Even voice notes saved on my phone, arguments, promises, admissions I'd recorded unknowingly over the years. Proof. I sat on the floor, surrounded by papers, and something inside me shifted. This wasn't about saving a marriage anymore. This was about saving myself. Later that day, Arslan tried again. We can do this peacefully, he said. There's no need to involve outsiders. Outsiders. That's what justice is called when it threatens people like him. I looked at him and saw it clearly now, the entitlement, the fear of inconvenience, the parents speaking through his mouth. And I understood the truth that finally set me free. They thought I was powerless because I was quiet. Because I was sick. Because I loved too deeply. That evening, my mother called. I hadn't told her anything yet. But when she asked, "Are you okay, Beta?" my voice cracked, not with despair, but with certainty. "No," I said. "But I will be." That was the moment. I decided I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't explain. I wouldn't disappear gracefully to make their lives easier. If Arslan and his parents had turned my pain into a calculation, then I would turn their calculation into a mistake. As I gathered the documents into a folder, my hands no longer shook. Because being called a burden had done something unexpected. It reminded me that even weight, when dropped at the right moment, can cause an earthquake. I didn't rush. That was my first advantage. While Arslan and his parents believed I was still fragile, still confused, still hoping for reconciliation, I became careful. Quiet. Observant. I let them think their plan was working. Step 1 was proof. I stopped reacting emotionally and started documenting everything. I forwarded emails from Arslan's laptop to a secure account he didn't know existed. I took screenshots of bank transfers made to his parents' accounts, some dated months before he ever called me a burden. I retrieved medical receipts showing I'd paid for most of my treatment myself, contradicting their claim of financial strain. Every lie left a footprint. I followed them all. Step 2 was timing. Arslan still believed he was in control. He spoke to me gently now, almost kindly, as if kindness could soften betrayal. He mentioned lawyers again, just to understand options, he said. I nodded. I asked questions. I played the role of a woman preparing herself to lose. Meanwhile, I met a lawyer of my own. Not one recommended by family. Not one who believed in compromise at all costs. A woman who listened without interrupting and said only one thing when I finished: "They've underestimated you." She explained exactly how dangerous their strategy was for them. Joint assets cannot be quietly reassigned. A spouse's illness cannot legally justify dispossession. And inheritance tied to my father? That was untouchable. Step 3 was exposure, controlled, not chaotic. I didn't confront his parents. Not yet. I let his mother continue bringing groceries, continue dropping passive insults wrapped in concern. I let his father lecture Arslan loudly on the phone, certain I couldn't hear. I could hear everything. And I recorded it. Then came the trap. Arslan asked me one evening, "If things end, you won't fight, right? I mean, you know how stressful courts can be." I looked down. Paused. Then said softly, "I don't have the strength for all that." The relief on his face was instant. That night, he sent the lawyer a message confirming I was emotionally prepared and unlikely to contest. That message became Exhibit A. As days passed, the pressure increased. His parents set a date. Papers were being drafted. Sarah's name came up more frequently, casually, carelessly, as if my replacement was already installed in their future. They were rushing. I wasn't. I had everything I needed now: documents, recordings, witnesses, timelines. A clean narrative of manipulation, greed, and cruelty disguised as practicality. The only thing left was the right moment. Because revenge isn't about shouting the truth. It's about letting people walk confidently into the consequences they designed themselves. And Arslan? He still believed I was a burden he'd soon put down. He had no idea he was carrying the weight of his own downfall, and he was about to drop it in public. The day Arslan thought would end quietly began like a celebration. His parents arrived early at the family lawyer's office, well-dressed, confident, already discussing lunch plans. His mother wore white, the color she believed symbolized dignity. His father carried himself like a man who had already won. Arslan barely looked at me as we entered, convinced I would sign, disappear, and make their lives lighter. A burden removed. When the lawyer asked if both parties were ready to proceed, Arslan nodded immediately. I did too. That was when everything changed. "My client would like to submit evidence before signing," my lawyer said calmly. Arslan turned, confused. "Evidence? For what?" I stood up. For the first time in weeks, my voice didn't shake. "For the truth." The room stilled. One by one, the documents appeared on the table. Bank statements showing joint funds transferred without consent. Emails between Arslan and his parents discussing how to minimize my claim. Medical receipts proving I paid my own expenses. And then, the recordings. His father's voice filled the room: "If we delay, she'll start asking questions." His mother's followed: "Illness makes people weak. Use that." Arslan's face collapsed. "This is illegal," his father snapped, standing up. "No," the lawyer replied. "What's illegal is attempting to dispossess a spouse using fabricated claims of dependency." Then came the final blow. The land documents. My lawyer slid my father's handwritten note across the table, along with legal proof that the land was purchased through my inheritance. Untouchable. Non-transferable. Not Arslan's to bargain with. "You used her father's memory as leverage," the lawyer said coldly. "That alone changes everything." Arslan tried to speak, but no sound came out. His phone buzzed. Once. Twice. The color drained from his face as he read the messages. His accounts frozen. The transfers flagged. The lawyer he trusted now legally obligated to report attempted fraud. His mother whispered his name, panic cracking her voice. For years, they'd called me a burden. Now the numbers told a different story. The lawyer concluded, given the evidence, this divorce will proceed, with full asset disclosure, compensation for emotional and financial abuse, and potential criminal review. Silence swallowed the room. I looked at Arslan then, the man who agreed when his parents called me a burden. You were right, I said quietly. I was heavy. I turned toward his parents. Heavy enough to collapse everything you built on lies. As I signed my papers, my terms, I felt it. Not victory fueled by rage, but justice sharpened by truth. They thought I'd leave quietly. Instead, I walked out free, and they walked out carrying the weight of what they'd done. Because when you try to throw someone away as a burden, you never expect them to be the one holding the receipts. The fallout was quiet, but devastating. Within weeks, Arslan's carefully managed life unraveled. His parents stopped answering calls. Their social circle, once so proud and loud, went silent after whispers of fraud and cruelty spread. The same relatives who once nodded when I was called a burden now avoided eye contact. The divorce finalized on my terms. I kept what was rightfully mine. Compensation was ordered. And the investigation, though never publicized in full, was enough to strip Arslan of the confidence he once wore like armor. He moved back in with his parents, no longer the obedient son with a clean future, but the man who gambled his wife's dignity for convenience. Sarah never became family. That plan collapsed the moment the truth surfaced. As for me, I moved into a smaller place. Brighter. Quieter. A home where no one whispered about my worth. My health improved, not magically, but steadily, because peace does that to a body. I returned to teaching part-time. Students didn't see me as weak. They saw me as patient. Strong. Present. People started asking questions. How did you stay so calm? How did you know what to do? Didn't it break you? The truth is, it did. But I learned something powerful in the breaking. Being called a burden nearly convinced me I was one. Almost. Until I realized something they never understood, a burden is something you carry unwillingly. I was never carried. I was endured, by people who benefited from my silence and feared my voice. Arslan never apologized. Not truly. But I didn't need his regret to heal. I needed my name back. My dignity back. My story told honestly. Today, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the woman who begged to be chosen. I see the woman who stood up when she was written off. To anyone watching this story right now, have you ever been betrayed by someone who claimed to love you? Have you ever been labeled a burden just because your existence became inconvenient? If you have, know this, people who try to discard you don't realize one thing: you carry the truth. And truth is heavier than lies will ever be. If this story resonated with you, share your experience in the comments. Your voice might be the strength someone else needs. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't destruction. It's walking away lighter, after forcing those who betrayed you to carry the weight forever.